being compliant, using the correct player declaration form template, entering all declared players. So on the budget template, the top section is for all those players receiving remuneration. So on there, you put their name, how much has been agreed to pay them, and how many games you would expect to be playing, which will auto calculate a total, and then that'll calculate what your budget is. Now, I know you're all saying, well, I don't know how many games Mick Lim's going to play. He's injury prone. He's never on the field. And the more highly paid players might play. What I would suggest you do, and it's been recommended by AFL Vic, is at the top section of your budget, list the top 22 paid players as playing 18 rounds. And that'll give you the worst case scenario from a budget perspective, best case for a coach, but worst case for a budget. And that gives you something to work backwards from. It doesn't matter. You won't get penalised or sanctioned if your budget says you're over. We all know that's probably the case anyway, because we understand that players will be unavailable through injury or maybe VFL commitments or whatever during the course of the season, and they're generally a higher paid player. So that's how you go about your budget. With regard to the players that aren't receiving any remuneration, it used to be that you had to fill in a non-declared player statement whereby you just listed the players, they had to sign it, and then you had to upload it, and then da-da-da. Across the state, there was feedback to say that it was probably overkill and not being done properly anyway. So AFL Vic have now stated that if a player is not receiving any remuneration, they don't have to sign anything, but you need to list them in the appropriate section on the budget template or the actuals template. But you've got to identify how many games they're playing and the fact that they're not getting any money in the column. So that when we look at the budget or the actuals, it'll reflect that. And I know this example says 21 players by 18 games. Well, we've got 22, which adds up to 396. So at the bottom in the total, it's got to reflect 396 games worth across the season and who's played in those games. Because when it's cross-referenced, it'll be cross-referenced to Play HQ. Ensure any deductions applied are permissible. So don't just assume that a player might get a reduction or exempt amounts for a particular reason without actually getting approval for that. The most common misunderstood deduction or exempt that people have put in, amount that people have put in, is to do with coaching. So make sure you are over the top of that. Assistant coaches are not entitled to any deductions at all. Every senior coach has got a stack of line coaches and specialist coaches and all that. They don't get a deduction if they're a player. You can, if you've got co-coaches up to a maximum of 2, then there's exempt amounts available there. But there are criteria that need to be met for those 2 to be deemed as co-coaches. Yep, so all the documents need to correlate. So the declarations what's on the budget and the actuals need to correlate with the declarations that have been made. So if a player's signed to say he's getting $100 a game, you can't have him on the spreadsheet saying he's getting paid $50 a game. Otherwise, then that is classified as a breach and it'll be followed up. Club-related expenses. So make sure on the spreadsheet there is a section down below. I'll run through the template shortly, but where you have the ability to put in extra payments that have been made. You might have paid club memberships for particular players as part of their agreement. They're for some apparel or function costs or anything like that. If you're doing that, make sure it's covered off in the declaration as well, because sometimes I've actually seen it in the budget or the actuals, but it doesn't reflect that in the player's declaration. So whatever you're going to provide for them, make sure it's all documented everywhere. Lodge all player declarations within 14 days of the first scheduled game. within the document portal. Obviously, there'll be some players who'll come to you after that, but you need to get them in that time frame before they play their first game. When in doubt about what should be included or excluded, make sure you seek. First of all, check the documents, and if you're not sure, still check with us, and we'll put it to the ops committee for them to provide a ruling.